Before we get to our interview, we got a couple clips to get to featuring Missouri head coach Eli Drinkwitz and starting receiver Barrett Bannister. Met with the media here recently with spring well underway in the Columbia. I mean, they're on practice 4 or 5 by now, I believe, as I'm recording this. So things are going quick here in Missouri. A spring game is less than 3 weeks away, which is incredible. But one of the big storylines there, Steve Wilks, defensive coordinator, back to the NFL. Blake Baker, newly hired safeties coach, going to be your new defensive coordinator after having experience as a defensive coordinator at Miami and Louisiana Tech. He's a Manny Diaz disciple. So here's Coach Drink on how the team's going to be handled defensive play calling duties. Of course, Drinkwitz calls the offensive plays there on game day with because the Tigers, in addition to Blake, have a coach DC down there. So, but the way Drink tells it, it's going to be Blake Baker's show to call on game day.
Eli, how does the dynamic work with the two guys? I mean, is play calling kind of a combined thing, or is Blake the voice on game day?
Yeah, Blake will be the play caller. He's got experience calling defenses in game scenarios and situations. It'll be a collaborative effort throughout the week, with different areas broke down, but the final say will be Blake as the defensive coordinator and Coach Smith as the co-defensive coordinator.
Scheme-wise, will Blake be similar to what you guys had, or a dramatic difference, or?
No, it should be. We're trying to carry over as much of the calls and style of defense that we can. Obviously, every defensive coordinator has their own fingerprint that they'll put on it, including Coach Smith and the wrinkles that he's going to want to add. And so, but we want to try to keep the terminology as similar as we can.
Now, as for the most important question in Columbia this spring, as is the case all around the SEC when there's an opening at the quarterback position, what's going to happen there? Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State transfer, that is not official. It sounds like things are trending that way. There's a good chance Jaden Daniels is on your roster at Missouri before long, but he's not going to be there by spring. So we got Brady Cook, who finished the last game of the season in the bowl game, and Tyler Macon, the touted redshirt freshman, both a couple Missouri in-state kids fighting for this job. Sam Horn, the touted Elite 11 quarterback, is arriving this summer. Drinkwitz has even said, Horn, he's made assurances to Horn he's going to give him every opportunity to start. Probably not very realistic considering he's not there for spring football, but who knows? I mean, it won't be the first time a quarterback entered a camp and just blew everybody away. So here's Drinkwitz on the quarterback competition, and because nothing is official with Jaden Daniels, he was not allowed to publicly comment or even talk about Jaden Daniels at this time, who was on a recruiting visit as Drinkwitz was given this talk here.
Eli, how different is it evaluating quarterbacks in spring as opposed to in the middle of the season when you don't have an opponent you're planning for?
Again, I think it's really important for both Tyler and Brady to understand that the job's not going to be earned in the spring. It's about going out there and developing and being consistent as a performer, learning from mistakes, failing forward, so to speak. And so don't go out there every day with this pressure that this throw is going to be, if I make this throw, I'm going to be the starting quarterback. We're not. We're going to add competitive competition. Sam's going to be able to have an opportunity to earn the job when he shows up on campus. And so, we're competing every single day because we always compete. But, after the spring game, there's not going to be an announcement on who the quarterback is.
All right, and then the last thing, aside from the quarterbacks, that all Mizzou fans want to talk about, Luther Burden, the 5-star receiver many had pegged as the top receiver prospect in the country, picked the in-state Missouri Tigers over Georgia, I believe Texas A&M. I mean, every school in the country basically was after Luther Burden. He was previously committed to Ohio State, and we all know what a factory they've become for receivers. So this is huge. This could be a game changer for the Missouri Tigers. And immediately after his first practice there of the spring, earned his jersey number, and Drinkwitz does his best to pump the brakes a little bit, but it's not going to work too well this offseason, I do not believe.
Eli, with Luther returning his number this quickly, what stood out about him so far that earned that number this quickly?
Yeah, I mean, he has done what he's supposed to do. He's been very attentive to detail. He's been very coachable. He's worked hard. Has made a couple of plays that earned him the opportunity to get his number, which is great for him, But I mean, everybody gets an opportunity to earn their number, so it's just part of the process. I guess would be the biggest thing. Is it's just part of the process. That doesn't need to fuel any more hype. Plenty of hype out there. Just calm down. Still February, late February.
Barrett mentioned specifically the other day he was a guy. Luther was a guy that came in here and you can't tell he's the number one receiver in the country or whatever. He's done everything the way you would want a freshman to. I mean, is that what you've seen so far? Yeah,
absolutely. He's very humble. Attacks every day because he wants to get better. You don't see entitlement. You see a guy who's very humble and hungry and working to earn his opportunity. I think that speaks to the culture of Coach Russell in the weight room and the seniors and those guys that are making sure that these guys are bought into how we're going to go about doing it here, All
right, then, and last little clips here we got before we get to our interview with Nate Edwards. Barrett Bannister, veteran receiver here. He was asked to share his thoughts on the quarterback competition there in camp, what he's seen so far, of course. He's talking Brady Cook, Tyler Macon. Those are the only two guys in the competition on the roster this spring in Columbia. So let's kick it over to Barrett Bannister.
Yeah, I think both have done a really good job. They've both just kind of rotated, with the ones, both taking reps with ones, twos, that deal. And so it's been really good to see both of them compete. I think both of them have shown really good things with the vertical passing game. And, obviously mentioned this in previous interviews, just their ability to use their legs is a really big key for us. And so I think they've done a really good job, and they're doing a good job, managing the offense and making sure everyone's where they need to be in order to execute.
There's a difference, obviously, in, hey, I might have to take over versus, hey, I'm trying to be the guy that's in this offense. So just as far as their ability to kind of – last spring everybody said this is Connor's team. There's no doubt. Where are they at in that progression?
I think they're learning. Everyone's learning every day, and they're developing as quarterbacks. That's what spring's for. One of our team goals is individual player development, and so I think, from Brady and Tyler's perspective, both of them are going to be growing as quarterbacks this spring, and into the spring, later part of the spring, summer, into fall camp, and so I think both of them have done a great job these first 2 days, and I think those progressions are just going to keep stacking days on top of each other, and so. I'm not sure if that totally answered your question, but.
And then last thing, this is something I discuss here with Nate Edwards in our interview here in a moment, but I just want to lay this out there because I don't even know if we talked about it when it happened, but Missouri's got a new receivers coach, Jacob Peeler. I believe he was at Oregon last year, but I know him as a former Ole Miss receivers coach when DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown were down there. And I know it's easy to sit here and say, well, those guys are so talented. They would have found their way to the NFL anyway. But Coach Peeler got a lot out of those guys, helped them develop their game. There's many talented players that don't make it to that level because they don't put in the work, they don't get developed. And this is an interesting position with Luther Burden, Mookie Cooper, and Dominique Lovett, to name a few, including Bannister here. Peeler's walking into a room with plenty of talent. It's on him now to get the most out of those guys. And Luther Burden certainly has the talent to be the next DK Metcalf, the next A.J. Brown for the Missouri Tigers. So here's Barrett Bannister, who seems very impressed with his new receivers coach, Jacob Peeler.
You mentioned there, Dad, I think this is your fifth receivers coach in 6 years. After just a brief time with Coach Peeler, is there anything you can take away and say, okay, this is unique about this guy, the way he's doing this?
Intensity. Yeah. That would be the one word that I would describe, compared to the other receiver coaches I have. Coach Peeler is very, very intense, and he demands a lot from you. And it's nothing that, is crazy that no one can accomplish, but it's a lot of things that, that he talks about that are in your control. You know what I mean? Like catching the ball, getting 2 lines underneath, high and tight the whole way back, things like that. And so I think that's something that's just been really cool is, he's pushing us every single day. And he always says, I'm not going to change the standard. The standard is what it is. And so I think that's really been awesome, and it's every single person included. Me, like I said, I've been here a long time. If I'm not high and tight, he's all over me. If Luther's not high and tight, he's all over him. And so I think that's really, really good, and it's been really good for us.